Now, I know I didn't break down a lot of the compilation albums that we talked about a couple episodes ago or a couple videos ago, or in the case of the podcast, a little bit ago. But there were a couple that I did want to talk about because I do have them, and the track lists are interesting, and they actually are important for um, the way that they began to view Elvis as a legacy artist at RCA as opposed to just a current artist. Because oftentimes, like, yes, you do get golden hit albums. You get, like, Elvis's Golden Records Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, yada yada. But a lot of artists can have those. Like, anyone who has, 10 hits or whatever, however, whether that's top 40 or top 20 or whatever, you can kind of smush together a bunch of singles and call it an album. But to actually do a retrospective is really fascinating. And from what I understand, A Legendary Performer was a series that RCA was doing. And in fact, they actually put on the back a little description. It says, RCA Records proudly presents the Legendary Performer Collection, a series of recordings by the world's finest musical artists. Glowing with an energy that transcends time, these are performances which will recall fond memories for collectors and bring the joy of new discovery to young audiences. That's really important. They actually, at a point, really wanted to take Elvis's catalog seriously. To an extent, in this certain line, that was the dealio, was that it was in the Legendary Performer series, and I have the first two, which were the ones that were released during his lifetime, and this one, the second one, has for collectors everywhere. RCA Records proudly presents Elvis: A Legendary Performer Volume 2, fascinating musical insights into the fabled Presley saga, and what you got on this, because they're pulling from the archives that they now own, and that they don't have to necessarily pay Elvis and Colonel Parker for the rights, the artist royalties on these. You actually get alternate and unreleased versions of songs, and these really are the first collector sort of mindset albums that came out. And apparently, the only artist that they had done these before Elvis, I think, was Glenn Miller, the famous band leader, and some of his kind of big band swing type stuff. And so yeah, they're putting Elvis kind of on that level with someone as great as Glenn Miller. And so, like, the first one, broadly chronological, kind of. It starts with "That's All Right, Mama." "I Love You Because," it's an alternate take. "Heartbreak Hotel," "Don't Be Cruel." You get "Love Me" and "Trying to Get to You." These are unreleased live versions from 1968. Then you jump back to the 50s for "Love Me Tender," 57, "Peace in the Valley," 58, "Full Such as I." "Tonight's All Right for Love," which was the alternate version that we talked about on the GI Blues album. This is unreleased in U.S. and English-speaking countries. If you remember way back when I reviewed GI Blues in the Blue Suede Reviews movie review, because there was a copyright issue with the public domain song that they pulled the melody from, "Tonight Is All Right for Love," from. They chose a different one for other markets outside of North America. And so you're getting that alternate version for the first time here. There's also "Are You Lonesome Tonight," which is an unreleased live version from, I think, 1968 as well. And "Can't Help Falling in Love" from Blue Hawaii. So a lot of them are masters, but there are a handful of alternate takes. There is this sleeve inside, and there's also a booklet, which A Legendary Performer at the Early Years. And this has some really nice archival files and stuff. There's a calendar from 74, but then there's a bunch of photos and stuff in here showing, there's newspaper clippings. They really were trying to create a retrospective about Elvis's career. They've got some stuff here like Elvis's serial number and photos from when he went into the Army. Really a fascinating a look through this. And there's actually there's a thing of keeping up with Elvis, Elvis's showroom appearances. It's telling you when the dates are for his past shows and where they were at, and that they were, whether they were sold out or not. Spoiler, they all were. And then also a promo for Elvis's Worldwide Satellite Show, January 14th, 1973, from Honolulu International Center, Honolulu, Hawaii. So even there, in the booklet, you get a little bit of a plug, but it's very classily done. You know, it's not Colonel Parker's typical tacky. I mean, obviously the color scheme is very 70s, but admittedly, but generally speaking, it's very well done. And same with Volume 2. Let me just put those back and pull these out. Very similarly, it's got, you know, this nice blue cover, Elvis, that's actually from Aloha. And this one has Harbor Lights, which is one of the unreleased masters, which wasn't on the Sun Sessions album that we were talking about. An interview with Elvis in Wichita Falls, Texas. I Want You, I Need You, I Love You, alternate take, Blue Suede Shoes, live, Blue Christmas, master, Jailhouse Rock, master, also It's Now or Never, master, Kane and a High Starch Color. Now apparently this is the first time Kane and a High Starch Color from Flaming Star was released on an LP, and that's not necessarily justification to include it in this set, but it is a fascinating little tidbit that fans who had heard it in Flaming Star in 1960 wouldn't have been able to pick up the song until A Legendary Performer Volume 2. But yeah, and then we've got Presentation of Awards to Elvis in 1961, Blue Hawaii unreleased live recording of the title song from his biggest movie, Such a Night, which is the master, including extras from the actual session, which I think is just session chatter. Baby What You Want Me to Do from 1968, How Great Thou Art, which is the master, and then If I Can Dream from the 68 special. So, I mean, it covers a lot of the same ground timeline-wise as the first volume does, but it just shows more of the kind of highlights of Elvis's career. And this one, you know, again, you've got little... So these are like pocket calendars, like it's an archival thing of like, did you have these pocket calendars? And back in the day, there's recording logs from RCA's official files. Like these were some of the first glances I think a lot of fans would have had of the business side of Elvis's, you know, career. And this is where I would argue Follow That Dream started. I know some people like to talk that some of the compilations in the early 90s, you know, like Collector's Gold, were kind of forerunners of that. But I would argue that the Legendary Performer series, which came out, these first two volumes came out during his lifetime, these were the predecessors to what would become the real archival releases that have come out since then, and particularly on the Follow That Dream label. If you get a chance to find any of these Legendary Performer albums in their original configurations, on LP even, check these out, because these are really fascinating, especially if you can find them on LP with the booklets. They're really, really neat. These are excellent albums. I understand, obviously, why they wouldn't be included in this, because if you include these, do you then not put in volumes 3 or 4? Well, for the greatest... or the Golden Records, they didn't put in Volume 5, which was posthumously, but these were released before. There's a lot of gray area. And granted, some of this is doubled up, you know. Do you really need Can't Help Falling in Love Again? Really? I don't think you do. But fascinating releases nonetheless. Definitely recommend these no matter what.